Welcome back to this gentle space, a place where every Zen story, every slow breath, and every peaceful image is woven to help you reclaim what modern life has quietly taken from you. A deep, healing, effortless sleep. Today, most people don't lack knowledge, methods, or sleep-supporting devices. They lack one small but essential thing: a safe space where the mind is allowed to rest. You may be strong throughout the day, able to handle countless tasks, able to appear calm through every change. But when night falls, when every outer noise fades, a part of you begins to speak. Unspoken worries, emotions you haven't faced, memories you haven't released. And that is why, even when your body is exhausted, you still cannot fall into deep rest. In Buddhist teachings, sleep is not merely a biological state. It is a form of meditation, a small gateway that brings you back to your inner nature. Many ancient Zen stories say this. People don't lose sleep because the body is weak, but because the mind hasn't received the signal that it is safe to stop. When these stories are told, from Kairu, Sahen, to the monks in snowy mountains and windswept hills, they all lead to one truth. Sleep only comes when the mind stops trying and begins to trust that it is allowed to rest. And this journey does not begin with mantras, rituals, or force. It begins with the simplest, closest thing, something most people overlook: your sleeping environment. In meditation, the simpler the room, the easier it is for the mind to settle. Order, cleanliness, and minimalism are not about aesthetics. They create the signals your nervous system needs to understand. This is a safe place to let go. Let's go deeper into this. Have you ever noticed that just by stepping into a cluttered room, your mind becomes tense, irritated, and your breath grows heavier? But when you walk into a quiet space with fewer objects, everything slows down, softens, and your body breathes more easily. Why can a room shift your inner state so quickly? In ancient teachings, the wise often said, "The outer world is a mirror of the inner world." When life outside is chaotic, the mind cannot rest. But the opposite is also true. When you create a harmonious, clean, peaceful space, that space becomes a companion that protects and softens the mind, especially the place where you sleep. Many people chase sleep through medication, white noise, or sheer exhaustion, forgetting this simple truth. Deep sleep does not come from a tired body, but from a sense of safety, and that sense of safety begins with the environment around you. A simple bedroom calms the mind, not because minimalism is trendy, but because the human body and nervous system were shaped for millions of years to relax in open, orderly spaces, much like a clean forest, a warm cave, or a quiet temple. Order sends an unconscious message. You are safe. You can release. Just as meditation clears the mind, sleep requires clearing the space. Both lead to the same place, the body and mind returning to their natural state. But how do we understand the link between environment and inner stillness? Here is a story once passed down in an ancient monastery in Hykenia about a young disciple and a small room, where one simple change transformed his entire state of mind. Long ago, on a mountain covered in old pines and morning mist, there stood a small Zen monastery hidden among the sound of wind and birds. There lived a young novice named Akiro. Though young in age, his mind raced as if he had lived through many storms. He practiced diligently, meditation, chanting, herbal tea, But one thing troubled him deeply. He couldn't sleep. Every night, even when his body shook with fatigue and his eyes burned, his mind spun like a wheel without brakes. One night, as the mountain wind brushed along the stone corridor, the abbot passed by Akiro's room. He paused at the doorway and silently observed. The tiny room, no larger than a single mat, was overflowing. Piles of books, unfinished drawings, bags of stones he had collected, old clothes not yet put away, broken wooden items he didn't want to throw out. The room looked exactly like the mind of someone who had never stopped. The abbot asked softly, "Do you sleep in this room every night?" Akiro nodded. "Then tell me, is this room reflecting your mind, or is your mind reflecting this room?" Akiro stood still, unable to answer. The abbot handed him a worn bamboo broom. "Tonight, clean this room as if you are cleaning your own mind." Akiro began with the smallest things. He gathered old items into one place, brushed dust off wooden shelves, folded his blanket neatly, wiped the floor until it caught the evening light. With every movement, bending, turning, sweeping, his mind grew quieter. When he finished, the room contained only what was truly necessary: a small bed, a low table, and a ceramic vase holding a single pine branch. The space felt open, like a long exhale after months of holding tension. That night, something miraculous happened. Just minutes after lying down, his eyelids grew heavy, his breath softened, and he fell into deep sleep. No dreams, no sudden awakenings, no restlessness. For the first time in a very long time, he truly rested. The next morning, Akiro rushed to find the abbot, eyes bright with relief. "Master, I slept so well last night. I didn't do anything special. I just cleaned the room." The abbot smiled. "You did the most important thing. You removed what made your mind believe it still had tasks to finish, worlds to hold together. When the outer world is in order, the body understands there is nothing demanding its attention. And when the body believes it is safe, sleep comes naturally." He placed a hand on Akiro's shoulder. "Remember, deep sleep does not come from effort. It comes from letting go, and letting go begins in the place where you live." The story of Akiro spread throughout the monastery. From that day on, every monk cleaned a small corner of their room before bed, the same way they cleared a small corner of their mind to welcome sleep. Akiro's story is not just about a room, it is about the human mind. Buddhist teachings say, the mind is like water, the world is like the wind. When the wind is strong, the water moves. When the wind is still, the water rests. A chaotic bedroom is like a spinning wind. It forces the mind to remember, process, react. Every object becomes a tiny command. Fold this. Read that. Finish this. Modern neuroscience calls this cognitive load, the brain's burden of constant signals. In a cluttered room, the nervous system does not believe it is time to rest. Buddhism calls this external conditions stirring the mind. Why is simplicity important? Because simplicity removes stimulation. With fewer signals, the mind returns to breath, to body, to itself. In ancient monasteries, monks' sleeping quarters are always simple, not because of poverty, but because of wisdom. Less possession, less disturbance, less mental noise, less suffering. A simple room is the foundation for a mind entering calm, the foundation for meditation, and the foundation for deep sleep. From Akiro's story and these ancient teachings, we understand this. Deep sleep is not random. It is prepared quietly through the space you live in. In Zen tradition, the bedroom is considered a meditation hall for rest, a place where body and mind stop, not a storage room for unfinished thoughts. A cluttered bedroom occupies not only physical space, but mental space, sending invisible messages that something is still undone. A clean, open space sends the opposite message: safety, breath, permission to rest. Modern science agrees with ancient wisdom. A tidy room reduces the brain's information load by 30 to 40%. With fewer environmental signals, the parasympathetic system activates, the system responsible for deep sleep. Psychology calls this environmental priming. The environment guides the mind. Buddhism calls this dependent arising. The mind reflects the conditions it meets. Which means, to sleep gently, create a gentle environment. You can begin with simple steps. Make your bed before sleep. Remove unnecessary items. Use soft colors. Keep work materials out of your sleeping space. Use warm, dim lighting. Keep one symbol of stillness nearby: a branch, a stone, a pressed leaf. When you enter a calm room, the nervous system immediately understands. It is time to let go. And that is the moment the body lowers its defenses, softens, and sinks into the deep rest where healing happens. The outer space becomes the doorway into the inner space. And once you realize that a room itself can heal you, can guide you into stillness, the next step becomes even deeper. Because the wise once said, "To sleep deeply, you must leave the whole world outside the bedroom door." That was the teaching of Master Soren, who always reminded his students, before you sleep, release every role: parent, lover, worker, success, or failure, and return to nothing but a single breath. And the story of Soren will open the next doorway of release. There are nights when the body is exhausted, the eyes are burning, yet the moment you lie down, your mind feels like a city that never turns off its lights. All the roles you played, the unfinished conversations, the worries you carried throughout the day, they all climb into bed with you, crowding the pillow that was meant only to support a tired head longing for rest. Here is the paradox. The body wants to sleep, but the mind is still working, still being a parent, a partner, a problem solver, a person carrying responsibility. The body lies in bed, but the mind is still standing in the world out there, and so sleep does not come. In Buddhist teachings, the masters of old offered a strange yet profoundly insightful reminder: to sleep deeply, one must learn to leave the whole world outside the bedroom door. It may sound like a simple lifestyle tip, but in truth, it is a teaching on non-self, on releasing roles, on having the courage to step out of the masks we wear every day just to function in the world. Before entering the meditation hall, practitioners remove their shoes, their hats, their outer layers. Before entering deep sleep, a person needs a similar ritual, putting down the roles that have grown tired. To understand this more clearly, let us enter the story of a sage, Soren, and the practice he taught his student. Hang the whole world outside the door. At that time, on a windswept highland, stood an old monastery leaning against gray rocky slopes, facing a forest of ancient pines that whispered day and night like the soft breath of the earth. The abbot was Sage Soren, a Zen master who spent most of his life in silence, yet his eyes were always warm, like a small fire keeping a traveler safe through the night. The monastery was not known for exotic teachings or sacred rituals. People remembered it for one simple reason. Anyone who stayed there for a while would say it was the first place they ever slept deeply, without dreams, without tossing, without waking in the middle of the night from nameless anxiety. One early autumn afternoon, a young merchant named Edrin arrived. Although his business was successful and his life abundant, he faced something the world's wealth could not buy: sleep. For many years, he managed only a few hours of rest each night. When he woke, his body felt like stone, his eyes burned, and his mind spun like a mill that never stopped turning. Sitting in front of Soren, Edrin's voice cracked with exhaustion. "I've tried medicine, alcohol, music, meditation, but I still can't sleep deeply. Please teach me a secret." Soren looked at him for a long time and then asked in a voice as soft as the wind, "During the day, who are you?" Edrin answered immediately, as if reciting something he had memorized long ago. "I'm a merchant, a husband, a father, the eldest son who supports the family. Every day I have hundreds of things to deal with." Soren asked again, "Then at night when you lie in bed, who are you?" The question stopped Edrin cold. He had never asked himself something so seemingly simple. After a moment, he finally answered, "I suppose I'm still all of those things. I still think about customers, contracts, debt, my children, my parents. My mind never stops." Soren pointed down the wooden hallway to a simple coat hook. "Tonight, before entering your room, stand before that hook. Each night, hang on it every roll you carry. When you step through the door, bring only one thing with you: a breathing human being." Edrin blinked in disbelief. "You mean I should imagine it?" Soren smiled gently. "Not just imagine it. Treat it as a real ritual. Will you try?" That first night, Edrin stood before the wooden hook. The night wind carried a hint of cold and the scent of pine resin. He placed his hand on his chest and whispered, "Here, and I hang the merchant." He imagined removing an invisible coat and placing it on the hook. "Here, I hang the husband who must be strong." Another coat. "Here, I hang the father who must succeed." And here, I hang the son who carries the family's expectations. With each gesture, his shoulders grew a little lighter, as if peeling off layers he no longer needed. When he stepped into the small room, he realized it wasn't just free of clutter. It was free of the titles that had clung to him for years. Lying down on the simple bed, he didn't have to perform the roles of success, strength, and responsibility. There was only breath, coming in, going out, clear and simple. That night, he slept deeper than he had in years. Though he still woke up once, he no longer felt that panicked heartbeat as if running from something unseen. In the following days, Edrin continued the ritual. The merchant hung. The husband hung. The father hung. The eldest son hung. Success or failure hung. Some nights, he even chuckled, realizing he had dragged the whole world into bed for so many years, yet blamed his sleeplessness on a weak mind. One particularly difficult night, after contracts collapsed and criticism piled up, Edrin stood before the hook for a long time. His hands trembled and tears fell. Not tears of failure, but the deep weariness he had carried for years. He whispered, "Tonight, even the one who must be strong will hang here." He removed the final layer, the armor of forced strength. He hung it up and then stood there as nothing but a bare human, tired, vulnerable, but real. Sage Soren appeared quietly, placing a hand on his shoulder. No comforting words, no lecture, only a gentle recognition. That is enough. That night, Edrin slept long, steady, and deeply, deeper than he had ever known. In the morning, he didn't claim his insomnia was gone, but a soft gratitude rose within him, not because life became easier, but because he had discovered a crucial truth. Deep sleep doesn't require a perfect life. It requires a moment when you dare to put down every role. As he left the monastery, Edrin bowed to Soren. "I can't say I'm cured, but now I know how to sleep as a human being, not as a walking burden of expectations." Soren simply smiled. Whoever brings the whole world to bed keeps the world awake. Whoever enters bed with only a breath, sleep will recognize them immediately. And in the breeze that crossed the rocky slopes, those words lingered, like a reminder for anyone worn out by too many roles. Soren's story is not just a charming trick for better sleep. It is a spiritual map for facing oneself before stepping into the night. In daily life, people often say, "I am an employee. I am a mother. I am the one who must be responsible. I am not allowed to be weak." These I am statements are layers of identity our minds cling to in order to feel valuable. By day, roles help life run. But by night, if we cannot release them, they become psychological weight, pulling the nervous system into a constant state of alertness. Buddhism calls this attachment to self and identity, clinging to me and mine. Zen shows that when you cling to "I must control everything," the mind cannot surrender into sleep, a state that requires letting go of control. When you cling to "I must succeed," the brain keeps calculating, analyzing, worrying, even when the body lies still. When you cling to "I must hold everything together," the heart won't relax, because it feels that if you rest, everything will fall apart. Soren did not tell Edrin to abandon work, family, or responsibility. He taught only one thing. Before you sleep, unplug the roles. Not destroy them, just pause them. Not be irresponsible. Just stop forcing body and mind to work overtime. Modern psychology describes this as role overload, carrying too many identities at once. The brain becomes overloaded with information and expectations, leading to stress, anxiety, and insomnia. Research shows that people who bring work into the bedroom have high activity in the default mode network, the part of the brain that replays thoughts, worries, and memories. The more active this network is, the harder it is to fall asleep. Buddhism recognized this long ago through the teaching of non-self and letting go. When a person cannot put down their roles, they do not only struggle to sleep, they struggle to live. Sleep simply reveals the truth more clearly. From Soren's story, several practical insights appear. First, people are not tired only from work. they are tired from refusing to step out of their roles, refusing to be weak, refusing to pause until tomorrow, refusing to exist without a label attached. Second, deep sleep requires a ritual of releasing identity. It doesn't need to be elaborate. A few simple, honest steps are enough. Pause for a few minutes before entering the bedroom. Close your eyes and name each role of the day: the worker, the provider, the strong one, the one carrying expectations. Whisper, "Tonight, I set this person down. Tomorrow I will return, but for now, I only need to breathe." If you want something more concrete, you can mimic Edrin. Use a hook, a chair, or even a section of wall near the door. Over time, the brain will learn. This is the place where roles are set down. Crossing this point means entering safety. Third, non-self applies directly to sleep. Non-self is not just philosophy. It is a very real feeling. Tonight I do not need to be anyone. I only need to be a breathing being. The less you cling to identity, the less tension you carry. The more you cling, the harder sleep becomes. Science supports this. Studies on nightly rituals show that people who practice small, consistent pre-sleep habits, writing a few lines, deep breathing, imagining leaving worries outside the door, have lower cortisol levels and fall asleep faster. Zen teaches this. Sleep is where the body and mind heal themselves. But healing only happens when a person steps off the stage of their own roles. When you understand how to hang your roles outside the door, sleep becomes gentler, breath becomes deeper, and the heart becomes less frantic. Yet there is another layer. There are nights when the room is tidy, the roles are hung outside, and sleep still won't come. At that point, the issue is no longer external. It is the noise of the inner world that refuses to quiet down. This is when a crucial truth must be faced. Insomnia is often not a problem of the body, but the noise of a mind that still refuses to let go. And from this point, the journey of understanding sleep as a spiritual practice begins to deepen. There are nights when your body is completely drained, your eyelids drop like heavy stones, yet sleep still waits somewhere outside the doorway and refuses to come in. You toss and turn, change positions, drink some water, count your breaths, even beg for a little peace. But the more you beg, the more awake your mind becomes. Many people assume they have a physical illness, insomnia, nerve problems, chronic fatigue. But there is a paradoxical truth that makes anyone who hears it for the first time stop and think. Insomnia is often not an illness of the body, but the noise of a mind that has not yet learned to let go. Where does that noise come from? Not from traffic, not from neighbors, not from the wind outside the window. It comes from within. The voice of worry, the voice of longing, the voice of regret, the voice of self-blame, the voice of fear about tomorrow. All the voices that were pushed down all day and rise up at night like waves. When the mind won't let go, sleep will not come. When the mind refuses to clock out, how can the body rest? Like a lake that can only be still when the wind dies down, a human being can only sink into deep sleep when the mind becomes quiet. To understand this more clearly, let us look at the story of the meditator Chiron, who could not sleep for many years and finally discovered the secret of inner silence. Long ago, in the windless Vireto Valley, there was an old Zen monastery deep inside a red maple forest. In autumn, the leaves fell into a thick carpet, like a golden blanket covering every path, making the ground look like a hill sinking into an endless sunset. People came there seeking peace, but one person came looking for something even harder to find: a full night's sleep. Chiron had once been a legendary swordsman, able to defeat dozens of opponents with just a few strokes of his sword, yet he was powerless in front of his own sleep. After leaving the worldly life behind, he chose to spend his final years in the quiet of the monastery. But every night, when he lay down, his mind turned into a battlefield. Not a battlefield of real swords, not a battlefield of real people, but of memories, fears, responsibilities, and all the things that had once weighed on his conscience, turning into a noisy crowd inside a body that was already worn out. One night, unable to bear it any longer, he went to see the abbot, a white-haired master whose eyes were still bright as stars. Bowing his head, Chiron spoke in a weary voice. "Master, I left the battlefield years ago, but every time I close my eyes, my mind is still fighting. I hear screams, swords clashing, voices calling my name, all echoing inside. Why can't the darkness soothe me to sleep?" The master led him out into the courtyard. Above them, the stars hung low like a soft breath. A light breeze stirred the lantern hanging under the eaves. "Birds go to sleep when night falls," the master said. "But if a person still carries a battle in their heart, then no matter how peaceful the place is, they will not sleep." Chiron sighed, sounding completely exhausted. "I don't want to fight anymore. I just want to sleep." The old master was quiet for a moment and then said, "Tonight, come to the meditation room. Bring the old wooden drum from the storeroom." In the meditation room, lit only by a dim oil lamp, Chiron set the old drum down and waited for some deep teaching. But the master said just one thing that left him stunned. "Every time a noise arises in your mind, strike the drum once." Chiron frowned. "Wouldn't that just make it even noisier?" The master looked straight into his eyes. "No. You're doing this so you can see that the noise you've been hearing all these years doesn't come from the outside. It comes from your own hand, your own mind, striking the drum." Chiron tried. A thought appeared. "What do I need to do tomorrow?" He struck the drum once. An old memory surfaced. "That day, I was wrong." He struck the drum again. A fear crept in. "What if I get sick? What if someone needs me?" Another strike echoed, and so it went on. The meditation room filled with drum beats, sometimes strong, sometimes soft. But with each strike, Chiron saw more clearly. Every thought was a blow he himself was landing on his own life. There was no one else in that room, only him and the hollow drum, empty, just like his own mind. Near midnight, Chiron was exhausted. His arm grew weak. The drum no longer frightened him. It simply exposed the truth. He was the one creating the noise. The master asked, "Do you want to sleep?" Chiron nodded slightly, then stopped striking. "But I've stopped, and the noise in my head is still hitting." "No, you're still striking by clinging to each thought. Try letting one thought pass without hitting the drum." Chiron closed his eyes. A small thread of worry rose up. Out of habit, His hand almost reached for the drum, but he stopped. The thought drifted by. No strike, no sound. The entire room fell into absolute silence. It was so quiet that he could hear the maple leaves falling outside. Soft, light, like the whisper of the earth. For the first time in many years, Karen's mind stopped beating the drum at night. His breath slowed. His shoulders dropped. The master said quietly, "The noise was never real. It was only your mind refusing to let go." That night, Chiron fell asleep right there in the meditation room, on a thin mat, under the fading oil lamp. No nightmares, no racing heart, no inner screams. The next morning, when he woke up, he said only one sentence. "It turns out I wasn't sleepless. I just refused to stop hitting myself." And in the Verido Valley, people still tell the story of that night. The night a swordsman who once defeated many enemies in the world finally learned how to stop attacking himself in his own mind. Deep sleep came when he stopped striking his own heart. Chiron's story shows us a clear truth. The noise that robs us of sleep does not come from life itself, but from the clinging of the mind. In Buddhist teachings, there are two kinds of mental activity that often cause sleeplessness. 1. Restless seeking, the mind running after something, plans, worries, desires. 2. Repetitive circling, replaying the past, looping memories, clinging to what should have been different. These two are like two drummers standing inside your chest. The more you push them away, the louder they become. The more you try to stop them, the stronger they beat. In meditation, we do not fight the noise. We simply stop striking. When a thought arises, instead of striking, just watch. When a worry appears, instead of resisting, just breathe. When an old memory returns, instead of replaying the story, let it fade like mist over a lake. The mind producing thoughts is like water producing waves. Waves are not the enemy of water. But if you want the water to be still, the wind must calm, meaning no new mental agitation is added. From a modern perspective, science calls the state that keeps us from sleeping hyperarousal, an overactivated mind. When the mind won't let go, the brain releases cortisol, the hormone of alertness. High cortisol, low melatonin, and sleep cannot come. Buddhism recognized this thousands of years ago through the teachings of mindfulness, concentration, and insight. Recognizing mental formations, not reacting, letting the mind become still, seeing clearly the true nature of the noise. Concentration means not adding new strikes to the drum. Wisdom means seeing that the drum never sounds by itself. It only sounds when the mind hits it. From Chiron's story, we can see something very clearly. Every thought is like a drum beat. It is not the drum itself that exhausts us, but the fact that we keep striking it by clinging, analyzing, replaying, and layering dozens of imagined fears around a single thought. Thoughts, by themselves, do not harm anyone. But when we allow ourselves to be swept away by them, they turn into blows landing directly on the heart. So letting go does not mean forcing yourself not to think, or trying with sheer willpower to push away every thought. Letting go simply means not adding, no longer clinging, no longer pushing, no longer stretching the story out in your head. The more tired the mind is, the more it needs silence. But most people do the opposite. The more exhausted they feel, the more they think. The more anxious they are, the more they imagine worst-case scenarios. And it is exactly those imagined drum beats that steal sleep away. A simple ritual before bed can help you return to stillness. Sit or lie down comfortably. Close your eyes and breathe slowly and gently. When a thought appears, silently whisper to it in your mind, "I see you. You may go now." No resistance, no pulling, no analysis. In psychology, this is called detachment, separating awareness from the stream of thoughts. When that happens, the brain naturally shifts from beta waves, alert and active, to alpha, relaxed, then to theta, drowsy. Once you stop striking, the drum will become quiet on its own, and sleep will find you in the most natural way. When you understand that insomnia is often not a disease of the body, but the noise of the mind, you will see that every night is an opportunity to practice letting go. Not letting go of life, but letting go of clinging. And then you will realize something deeper. When we sleep, we enter a lesson on non-self. We leave our life story behind and are reborn the next morning. From here, we will go deeper into the meaning of being reborn every morning, a beautiful practice in Buddhism and also a foundation for healing. There is a quiet question that very few people dare to look at directly. When you wake up each morning, are you really the same person as yesterday? Or are you already someone completely new without even realizing it? People usually think of life as one long straight line. Yesterday connects to today. Today connects to tomorrow. And the story of who I am is told continuously, without interruption. But if you look carefully, each night when you sink into deep sleep, everything you cling to temporarily disappears. Your name, your job, your status, your worries, even your emotional wounds. In that span of time, there is no person who was offended, no person who must succeed, no person who is afraid of being abandoned. There is only a body that is breathing, a heartbeat quietly sustaining life, and a consciousness that has softly withdrawn into a gentle darkness. That is exactly the lesson of non-self that life quietly teaches us every night. When we sleep, we step into a lesson on non-self. We leave our life story behind, and in the morning, we are reborn again. People often talk about non-self as some distant philosophical concept, but in reality, non-self appears very close to us, right inside the sleep you have passed through for so many years of your life. It just has never been invited into your awareness. To picture this more clearly, let us step into a Zen story, where a young disciple learned how to die a little each night, so that in the morning he could live more lightly. In the Vireto Valley, where red maple forests stretch out like a sea of fire every autumn, there was an old Zen monastery nestled in the morning mist. When the wind blew, maple leaves fell in waves, covering the ground in a soft orange-gold layer like heaven's own carpet. In that beautiful yet melancholy landscape, a young man named Aaron came seeking refuge. Aaron arrived after too many collapses, a broken family, a shattered career, friends who slowly disappeared one by one. In his heart, only two heavy guests remained: anger and shame. All day long, Aaron repeated the same story in his mind. I am a failure. I am someone who was abandoned. I don't deserve peace. During the day, Aaron worked as if trying to prove the opposite. He carried water, chopped wood, chanted sutras, did chores around the monastery. But at night, when everyone else fell into sleep, Aaron's eyes stayed wide open in the dark. As soon as he closed them, old scenes surged back. The last argument, the reproaches of his family, the email that never got a reply, and the words that hurt him down to the bone. For Aaron, the bed was not a place of rest. It was a stage where the past replayed itself over and over. One night, the abbot walked past his room and saw the dim oil lamp still flickering. He knocked gently on the wooden frame. "Why are you still awake at this hour?" Aaron startled. "Master, my body is tired, but my mind keeps replaying old things. It turns on like a movie I hate, but am forced to watch every night." The Zen master stood silent for a moment, then asked, "In that movie, who is the main character?" Aaron's throat tightened. "It's me." "And what are you trying to do in that movie?" "I keep trying to find a different ending. I think that if that day I had said something different, done something different, things wouldn't have turned out so badly." The master nodded gently. "So every night, you are restaging the funeral of a day that has already died, trying to rewrite the script so it will hurt less." Aaron lowered his head, unable to speak. The master continued, "Tomorrow after the afternoon, come meet me at the graveyard behind the temple." The next day, as the sun slipped behind the mountains, Aaron arrived. The small graveyard lay behind a pine grove, where a few old tombstones stood quietly in the wind. In the middle of an open patch of earth, the master had already prepared a small mound of soil, a thin wooden board, and a bowl of clear water. The master said, "From today on, each night you will hold a small funeral for your own story." Then he pointed to the wooden board. "Before you sleep, write Aaron's day-to-day. Then write down 3 things. One thing that made you happy, one thing that made you sad, and one thing you regret. Read it once, then dip the board into the bowl of water so the words dissolve. After that, bring a handful of soil and add it to this mound, as if you are burying the story of today." The master added, "When you return to your room, you are not allowed to replay that movie again, because it already has a place to lie down." Aaron half believed, half doubted, but he did as he was told. The first night he wrote, "Aaron's day-to-day. Joy. I got to talk with an older monk. Sadness. I missed home. Regret. I spoke harshly to someone in the kitchen." He read it again, and his heart grew heavy. Then he dipped the board into the water. The ink melted and flowed into pale streaks. Strangely, the story he had held so tightly all day suddenly became softer and faded. Aaron bent down, took a handful of soil, and placed it on the mound. In that moment, he felt clearly. Today has died. It has been buried in its proper place. That night, when he lay down, images still passed through his mind, but weaker, more blurred. Each time his mind tried to pull the story back, Aaron remembered the board dissolving in the water, remembered the handful of soil on the mound. He whispered, "That day has already been buried." Many weeks passed. Each night, Aaron wrote, read, dipped, added soil. The mound behind the temple slowly grew taller, like a small hill. One evening, after writing his line of regret, he stopped. he looked at the things he had written over many days. What startled him was not the mistakes themselves, but the fact that they kept changing. Today, he regretted his words. Yesterday, he regretted his silence. The day before, a hasty decision. He sighed, but it was a sigh as light as putting down a heavy load. So I'm not some permanently failed person. I'm just someone who is learning, stumbling in a different way each day. That night, when he dipped the board into the water, Aaron burst into tears. Not the tears of self-pity, but the tears of someone who realizes for the first time that for years he had been clinging to dead days, refusing to let them rest. After a few months, Aaron slept more deeply, not because his life suddenly became better, but because each night he buried an old version of himself. One morning, as sunlight pierced through the pine branches and fell on the stone path, Aaron came to the master and said, "I feel that when I wake up each morning, I'm no longer the person of yesterday. Something is lighter." The master looked at him, his eyes gentle as mist. "That is because each night you allow the Aaron of yesterday to lie down, and this morning you allow yourself to be reborn without carrying the full weight of old pain." Then he spoke slowly. "Sleep is not only where the body rests. Sleep is where the mind lets go of the self. If you carry all the old versions of yourself into the morning, it means you did not truly sleep last night." Aaron's story is a vivid illustration of the teaching of non-self and impermanence in very ordinary life. Each day, people play many roles: successful person, failed person, good person, wrongdoer, loved one, abandoned one. Then the mind gathers all those fragments and frames them into a single story. This is me. That story is told over and over until it seems solid, unchangeable. Yet if you look directly at your experience of sleep, something becomes very clear. In deep sleep, there is no who I am. There is no I am right or I am wrong. There is no I am loved or I am abandoned. There is a body in the process of recovery, a brain reorganizing memories, a nervous system being repaired. No labels, no stories, no roles are needed. That is a very close image of non-self. The storyteller self is absent, but life continues. Buddhist teachings say that what we call I is only a collection of the 5 aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness, constantly changing, with no fixed core. Deep sleep is like a natural practice where these 5 aggregates temporarily adjust and reset balance. If you pay close attention, you will notice something. Each morning, your emotional state is never exactly the same as the night before. Some days, you wake up feeling lighter. Some days, you're still tired, but there is some small inner space that feels different. Modern psychology calls sleep a system reset. During sleep, the brain filters memories, keeping what is needed, trimming away what is extra. Neural connections get pruned. Emotional circuits that were overloaded become calmer. If a person stays awake for many days, they can fall into hallucinations and psychosis because there is no empty space in which to rebuild. In the language of Buddhist teachings, you could say, sleep is a very gentle death, the temporary death of the story, who I am. Each morning is a small rebirth. you have a chance to tell today's story differently. But out of ignorance, people often do the opposite. At night, they refuse to let old stories die. In the morning, they rush to grab all the old burdens and throw them back onto their shoulders. What is the result? They do not learn non-self. They do not receive the full benefit of deep sleep, even though their body lies in bed every night. From Aaron's story and the teaching of non-self, we can draw a few practical points. Each night is a small funeral for that day. You can do what Aaron did and create a symbolic ritual. Write down your day briefly. 1 joy, 1 sadness, 1 regret. Read it over and accept. This is how it happened. Imagine placing it all into a small box, closing the lid, and leaving it in a corner of the room so that day has a place to lie down. Don't force sleep to carry your whole life. Sleep does not have the job of solving every problem, fixing every mistake, or finding a different ending for you. Sleep has only one job: to restore body and mind. If you demand that it also change the past, it will become heavy, tense, and it will leave. Each morning is a rebirth. When you wake up, before reaching for your phone, email, or jumping into work, give yourself 1 minute to look out the window, breathe deeply, and ask, do I really have to be the person from yesterday today? Is there something I can set down so I can walk more lightly? You only need to choose to let go of one small thing. One harsh label you've been using on yourself. One old self-blaming line. One impossible expectation. Scientific studies show that people who have the habit of light reflection before sleeping and after waking, writing a few lines, breathing slowly, acknowledging their feelings, not only sleep more deeply, but also have higher life satisfaction. This is very close to what Buddhism calls mindfulness of body, feeling, mind, and phenomena during 2 important transition moments: before sinking into unconsciousness and right after returning. If you want to bring this teaching into your own nights, you can try a small practice inspired by Aaron's daily funeral. Before sleep, 1. Sit quietly on the edge of your bed or on a small chair. 2. Close your eyes and breathe slowly. Breathing in, know you are breathing in. Breathing out, know you are breathing out. 3. Gently review your day like watching a short clip. No analysis, no judgment. 4. Whisper inwardly, today I also did the best I could with the conditions I had. Today is allowed to end here. 5. Imagine placing the whole day on a leaf and letting that leaf float down a river. Watch it drift away. 6. Say softly in your mind, tonight, only this body breathing and this heart beating remain. That is enough. Then lie down as if stepping through another door, the door of temporary non-self. There is no need to carry your entire life history in with you. The next morning, 1. When you first wake up, don't jump up or grab your phone right away. 2. Take 1 deep breath. 3. Ask quietly inside, if this were the first day of my life, what quality would I like to bring into today? 4. Choose 1 quality: gentleness, steadiness, generosity, slowness, and let that quality accompany you through the morning. By doing this, you begin to fully live the meaning of each night is a small death, each morning is a rebirth. Sleep then becomes not just rest for the body, but a practice of non-self that helps the mind loosen its tight grip on the stories it tells about itself. When you understand that sleep is a lesson in non-self, a moment when you leave your life story behind and are reborn the next morning, you will look at the night with different eyes. Night is no longer a thief stealing working hours, but a quiet teacher of letting go and renewal. And to go deeper into that letting go, not only does the mind need to learn to soften, but the body also needs its own language, the language it has known since ancient times. Darkness, because to fully enter that gentle death each night, the space around you also needs to return to the state your body has adapted to over millions of years of evolution. The sleeping space should have as little light as possible. Darkness is the language the body has heard for millions of years, and from here, the story of darkness, light, and the wisdom of the body will begin to unfold. There is a paradox that many people have never really noticed. During the day, we are afraid of the dark, but to enter deep sleep, we actually need that very darkness. Why is it that in a century flooded with bright lights, people struggle with sleep far more than our ancestors who lived in caves? Because the human body was never programmed to live surrounded by intense artificial light, to stay awake all night, or to stare at harsh blue screens. The body understands darkness as a sacred signal. It's time to let go. It's time to turn inward. Like a forest that only truly quiets down when night falls, human beings are the same. Only in deep darkness do the layers of consciousness, covered over all day long, finally have a chance to settle. Imagine your bedroom as the inside of an ancient cave where early humans felt completely safe. The less light there is, the more easily the mind sinks down, because in the silence of darkness, we no longer have to play any role, no longer have to brace ourselves, no longer have to hold anything up. And from this starting point, the story of a young meditation student at Amatera Monastery is told. In a distant mountain range of the ancient East, there was a monastery called Amatera, set in the middle of a bamboo forest that stretched all the way to the horizon. Every morning, thin clouds drifted by like a silk scarf of the sky, laying a layer of stillness over the old tile roofs, so quiet that one could hear each breath of wind touching the bamboo leaves. Among those who came to this monastery was a young man named Rian. He did not come to escape the world, but to find himself again after many years of battling chronic insomnia. Even though the monastery was as peaceful as an autumn lake, every night Rian tossed and turned, lying on his side and on his back until nearly dawn. As soon as he closed his eyes, his mind lit up with fragments of worry like small sparks that could not be put out. One evening, after everyone had returned to their rooms, Rihan went to see Zen Master Mahedo, a revered sage of the monastery, known for eyes as deep as mountain stone and a voice carrying the authority of long-cultivated calm. Master, I try to sit in meditation all day to lighten my mind, but at night, my eyes open wide again. The more I try to sleep, the more tangled my heart becomes. Master Mahedo did not answer immediately. He simply lit a small oil lamp and motioned for Rian to follow. The two of them walked down a long wooden corridor where the flickering light reflected off the aged floorboards, then crossed the misty courtyard. At the far end of the courtyard was a room Rian had never seen before. The master opened the door. Inside was a depth of absolute darkness. No candles, no moonlight, not a single shaft of light entering from anywhere. Rian shivered slightly. "Master, what is this place?" Without another word, the master blew out the oil lamp. The room sank into complete blackness, so dark that Rian could not judge distance, could not tell whether his own hand was near or far, could not know if the space he stood in was wide or narrow. In the middle of that darkness, the master's voice echoed, "This is the sleeping room for those learning to return to their original nature. You are not sleepless because of your body. You are sleepless because your mind never truly turns off the lights." The master placed a hand on Rian's shoulder, light yet steady. "Are you afraid of the dark?" "Yes, a little." "Good. It is precisely because you are afraid that you need to step into it. A meditation student must understand. Darkness does not threaten you. It simply reveals you in a different way." Then the master closed the door, leaving Rian alone in a dense, solid night. At first, Rian could hear his own heartbeat pounding as if it wanted to break out of his chest. His breath was short and fast, his body tight like a stretched string. But as the minutes passed, with his eyes having nowhere to cling and his mind having no images to chase, he began to feel the darkness holding him, not at all as frightening as he had imagined. It was deep, quiet, and gentle, like the heart of the earth. No more light, no more visual angles, no more triggers for memory. Only a blanket of stillness covering both body and mind. That night, for the first time in many years, Rian sank into sleep so deep he did not even know when he had laid his head down. The next morning, as the first sunlight filtered through the bamboo grove, the master returned. Rian was sitting at the doorway, his eyes bright, as if he had just discovered something important. The master asked softly, "You understand now, don't you?" Rian nodded. "Yes." In the darkness, I no longer had anything to cling to. No roles, no past, no old stories. There was only the breath. The master smiled, "And when you are left with only the breath, that is when you truly begin to live." Rian's story reveals a simple truth that modern people have forgotten. Light is stimulation, while darkness is the doorway back inward. In Buddhist teaching, darkness does not carry a negative meaning. It is the phase when consciousness withdraws from the world of appearances and returns to its quiet source. Like a seed resting in the earth before it sprouts, like a fetus hidden in the womb before it steps into the light, the mind also needs its own night in order to recover. When there is still too much light, the brain keeps believing the day is not over yet. Melatonin is not released. Relaxation hormones do not do their work. So people keep struggling with thoughts that never shut off. Darkness helps consciousness change layers. Like the meditation student Rihan, when all stimulation disappears and only the in and out of the breath remains, the mind slowly settles into its deepest level. That is non-self in sleep. A human being stepping out of all roles to return to their vital energy. In the teachings, the Buddha said, "For the mind to be at peace, it must have a place to rest." Darkness is that place. Modern science also confirms that. Blue light from screens delays the natural sleep cycle. White light makes the brain think it is still daytime. Even soft yellow light is more stimulating than we assume. Only when the room is dark enough does the body understand it is safe. It is time to rest. The more attention a person pays to this small detail, the deeper their sleep becomes. The lesson of darkness not only helps you sleep more deeply, it also reminds you that sleep is not wasted time, but the period when the body regenerates cells, fine-tunes hormones, heals emotional damage, and clears out the mental residue of the day. Master Amatera once said, "A night of proper sleep is a rebirth." And to understand more deeply this quiet process of rebirth, the next part of the journey will enter the story of Sage Leora, the one who used breath to heal the nightmares that haunted her for many years. There is a quiet but very common belief. Sleeping a lot is a waste of time. Sleeping less means you're hardworking. That's what successful people do. Many people grow up with that idea. They drink more coffee, stretch their work hours longer, cut away minutes of rest, and treat sleep as something they can negotiate with. Until one day, the body starts to revolt. The heart races, the head always feels tight, emotions become fragile, they get irritated easily, sad for no clear reason. At that point, a new truth appears. Very paradoxical, yet true for both body and mind. Sleep is not wasted time. It is the time when the body regenerates cells, heals emotions, and resets the endocrine rhythm. It is like a temple. During the day, it is a place to receive people, chant, and work. At night, when the doors are closed, the roof tiles, wooden pillars, and brick courtyard quietly endure dew and wind, so that the next morning they can still stand firm. The body is the same. Daytime is the front stage that the world sees. Nighttime is the backstage, where cracks are repaired, wires are reconnected, and the whole system is fine-tuned. If you only look at life from the front, you will think sleep is useless. But if you look deeper behind the scenes, you'll see, without sleep, both body and mind slowly fall apart. To understand this more clearly, listen to the story of a young scholar who always treated sleep as the enemy, until his own body became a warning letter. Long ago, in the city of Arvani, where stone towers reflected into the blue river, there was a young scholar named Elian. He was the pride of the entire city, intelligent, well-read, a strong writer, and so sharp in debate that everyone believed he was born to change his era. But there was a secret very few people knew. Elian was afraid of sleep. He often told his friends, half joking, half serious, "Sleeping 8 hours is wasting a third of your life. While others are sleeping, I should be working, reading, writing, getting ahead of them." For many years, he slept only 4 or 5 hours a night. At first, he was still healthy. He was proud that he was more efficient than everyone else. But then, quiet signs began to appear. In the morning when he woke up, his head felt heavy, like it was covered in fog. In the middle of conversations, he forgot what he had been saying. The pages of books that once brought him joy turned into a burden. And every night, Even when his body was exhausted, his mind spun like a wheel with no brakes. Elian began snapping at his servants, becoming impatient with friends, and even an offhand comment was enough to make him explode. Something in him was breaking, bit by bit. One day, while he was lecturing, Elian grew dizzy and nearly collapsed. His teacher, the elderly Zen master Navir, whose eyes seemed to understand the things people themselves were not ready to face, called him over. "Have you been resting enough?" the master asked softly. Elian answered in a voice mixed with pride and defensiveness. "I can't sleep much. I have to write, research, and contribute." The master looked at him for a long time, as if seeing right through that exhausted pride. "You think you're giving yourself to the world," the master said, "but in truth you're burning your candle at both ends, and when it goes out, you'll have nothing left to offer." Elian froze. The master added only one thing. "Tonight, come to the garden behind the temple. I'll be waiting for you." When night fell, the garden was covered in a gentle indigo hue. On a stone table sat a small oil lamp, casting a soft yellow glow into the night mist. The master brought out 2 candles, one ordinary candle and one that had been lit at both ends. He lit them both. "Watch," he said. The candle burning at both ends shone so brightly that Elian had to squint. "It is brighter," Elian said. The master nodded. "Brighter, but wait a little longer." Time passed. The cool night wind moved through the leaves. Slowly, the candle burning at both ends ran out of wax, flickered wildly, and then went out completely. The single-ended candle, though never blazing, continued to burn steadily and remained. The master looked at Elian. "Which one do you want to be like?" Elian lowered his head. The answer was too obvious. The master continued. "Daytime is when you burn. Nighttime is when you recover. Sleep doesn't steal your time. It gives you back a clearer mind to live tomorrow. If you treat it as a thief, you will lose both body and mind." Elian tried to argue, "But if I sleep more, I'll have less time to work." The master shook his head. "No, you'll have better quality. 1 hour of clear focus is worth more than 3 hours of exhausted effort." Then he set a glass cup in front of Elian. "This is your brain." He poured clean water into it. "This is clarity." Then he added small handfuls of sand. "This is worry, tension, and emotions you haven't processed." The water instantly turned cloudy. If every day you keep adding sand, but never let the glass sit long enough to settle, you'll only see life through this muddy water. Sleep is the time when the glass is put down so the sand can sink to the bottom. The master looked at him. People who have been sleepless for a long time are not unintelligent. They're just looking at life through a layer of fog they don't allow to settle. Elian was silent. That night, for the first time in many years, he allowed himself to go to sleep early. No books, no papers, no forcing, no self-blame. He just breathed, closed his eyes, and let his mind stop running. A few weeks later, the headaches eased. He became calmer, less irritable. Small joys returned. His writings became clearer and deeper. One morning, Elian went to the master, bowed, and said, "It turns out that all this time, I've treated sleep like an enemy, when it has been the quiet craftsman repairing my mind and heart." The master smiled. "Without sleep, even wisdom is just a flickering lamp in the wind. The teachings say that human beings are made of body and mind, like two sides of the same sheet of paper. You cannot care for one and neglect the other. Sleep is the time when both body and mind are nourished. The body regenerates cells and repairs damage. The mind reorganizes memories and releases some tension. The endocrine system is balanced and the biological rhythm is reset. In the language of Buddhist practice, you could say, sleep gives bodily karma a chance to rest. Sleep helps mental formations become less agitated. Sleep creates the physiological foundation for mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom to grow more steadily. If during the day people live in craving, anger, and ignorance stretched to the limit, never letting the body pause, then at night, sleep becomes fragile and easily broken. In that state, body and mind are like a carriage that is constantly being pulled along but never oiled, never allowed to stop. Modern psychology points out that, in deep sleep, the body releases growth hormone, which helps regenerate tissue, muscles, and bones. During REM sleep, the brain processes emotional memories, helping us digest what we've gone through. Chronic sleep deprivation raises cortisol, the stress hormone, making people more anxious, more easily angered, and less able to regulate their emotions. From the perspective of meditation, this matches perfectly. A tired, sleep-deprived mind finds it very hard to enter concentration. Sitting meditation becomes a battle with drowsiness or restlessness, not an opportunity to observe. So taking care of sleep is also taking care of your path of practice. You don't sleep to escape life. You sleep so you can step into life more awake tomorrow. From Elian's story, we can gather a few very concrete points. Sleep is the quiet repairman. It doesn't make noise. It doesn't show off. But every night, millions of cells are being renewed and worn neural pathways are being restored. If you treat sleep as an enemy, you're rejecting the most patient repairman you have. 1 hour of clear work is worth far more than many hours of tired work. Someone who is sleep deprived may sit at a desk longer, but the quality of their thinking is lower. They make more mistakes, and they react more emotionally. Someone who sleeps enough may work fewer hours, but each decision is clearer and each thought deeper. Compassion toward the body is part of the spiritual path. Many people think, I must push myself, I must endure, and call that diligence. But true diligence is not destroying the body. It is using the body wisely, knowing when to stop, when to rest, and when to sleep. Science and Buddhism meet at this point. Lack of sleep is a form of suffering. Suffering in the body, suffering in the mind, and emotional vulnerability. We don't end that suffering only by willpower, but by rearranging our lives so that work and rest are in harmony. When you understand that sleep is not time stolen from your life, but the time when the body regenerates cells, heals emotions, and resets hormones, you will begin to honor each night the way you honor a silent sutra being chanted by your body and mind. But understanding this still isn't enough, because besides how long you sleep, your sleeping posture is also an important part of helping the nervous system truly relax and enter a deeper rest and restore state. In ancient teachings, there is an interesting point. Lying on the right side can help activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system, helping the body relax the heartbeat steady, and the breath deepen. And from here, the story of a young meditation student's sleeping posture, along with discoveries from medicine, will open a new doorway of practice for your sleep. For countless generations, people have believed that sleep is a vague phenomenon. Whoever needs it will sleep. Whoever is tired will sleep. Whoever is lucky will sleep well. But there is a paradox that few people notice. Sleep is not only a state of mind, it is also the result of the body's posture. Many people have asked, why, when we are exhausted, is it easier to fall asleep lying on our side? Why does lying on the right side slow the breath and soften the heartbeat? Why is it that just by changing posture, the body already feels allowed to rest, while many people chase sleeping pills, sleep music, sleep trackers? They forget the most basic thing. Sleep is the meeting point of body and mind in a state of letting go. And the way we lay the body down is the first signal we send to the mind. Tonight is safe. It's okay to relax now. Like opening an old wooden door. Just turn it at the right angle, and the hinges suddenly become smooth. The human body is the same. Just place yourself in the right posture, and the nervous system immediately shifts into rest and digest mode, the place where recovery begins. To understand the deeper meaning of this, step into an old story about a young meditation student who struggled for many years with insomnia, even though his mind was very sharp, because his body did not know how to let go. On the slopes of Mount Silaru, where bamboo groves rustled whenever the wind passed, there was an ancient monastery that had existed for hundreds of years. There lived an old Zen master named Aravan, known as a master of breath and the art of sleeping in meditation. One day, a young meditation student named Kairu came to see him, bringing with him the suffering he had carried for many years. Chronic insomnia. Even though he knew the sutras, sat in meditation well, and could calm his mind during the day, when night fell, his mind rolled in layers like waves, and his body turned to stone. He lay there for hours with his eyes still wide open. The Zen master gently asked, "Which position do you usually sleep in?" Kairu replied, "I lie on my back with my hands on my chest, trying to take deep breaths to calm down." Master Aravan smiled with gentle understanding. "You are fighting your own body. When the body doesn't believe it's allowed to rest, the mind doesn't dare rest either." Then the master led Kairu to a small room carved into the mountainside, called the Stone Cell. Inside, there was only a simple straw mat, a coarse cloth pillow, and the warm, dim light of an oil lamp. "Tonight you will sleep here," the master said, "but you must follow every detail I give you." Kairu bowed and agreed. When night came, the mountain mist drifted in, making the air cool and soft, like water flowing over the skin. The master told Kairu to lie down, but not in the way he always had. "Turn onto your right side." Kairu did as he was told. Gently bend both legs. Place your left hand on your thigh, and let your right hand rest loosely in front of your chest. Let your left shoulder roll slightly forward. Relax your jaw. Let your tongue lightly touch the roof of your mouth. Kairu opened his eyes in surprise. "That's all, master?" The master nodded. That's all." Then he sat down beside him, his voice low and steady like the wind. "When you lie on your right side, your heart sits lower than the base of your stomach. The breath flows in more easily. The diaphragm softens and the heartbeat slows. When the heart slows, the mind stops being on high alert. And when the mind stops being on high alert, you slip into sleep naturally. Like a small boat drifting gently across the water, Kairu closed his eyes. Doubt was still there, but his breathing had already begun to soften. The master placed a hand on his shoulder and said quietly, "Don't try to sleep. Just let the body believe that this is a place where it is allowed to rest." After a while, Kairu heard the wind softly threading through the rock walls. The faint scent of bamboo drifted in like a verse that had not yet become words. Thoughts no longer clung to each other as they did on other nights. They slowly dissolved, gently, quietly. In that stillness, Kairu slipped into sleep without knowing when it happened. The next morning, when he opened his eyes, he saw the first light of day filtering through the door of the stone cell. Master Arivan was still sitting at the threshold, as if he had been there all night without any sign of fatigue. "How long did you sleep?" the master asked. Kairu answered honestly, "I don't know, but it feels like I slept for all the years I couldn't sleep before." The master nodded lightly, his eyes reflecting that he understood exactly what was happening inside the young man. "You see, it wasn't a mantra. It wasn't force or willpower. It's simply that you placed the body in the right spot, and the mind knew what to do on its own." From that day on, Kairu never saw sleep as a battle again. He saw it as a return to the body, to the breath, to the trust that when the body is placed in the right position, the mind will find its own path into peace. In Buddhist teachings, body and mind are always two sides of one flow. If you want the mind to let go, the body must first let go. The right side lying posture, called lion seat when meditating, and lion's posture when sleeping, is not some mystical ritual. It is the result of subtle observation of the body thousands of years ago. When you lie on your right side, the vagus nerve is stimulated. The parasympathetic system, the rest and digest system, opens. The breath becomes longer and deeper naturally. The diaphragm softens, the belly drops, creating a sense of safety. The body stops fighting and stops tensing. The mind stops being on guard and stops defending itself. Modern psychology calls this the open door effect of the vagus nerve. When the body understands it is no longer under threat, the brain immediately shifts into deep recovery mode. This aligns in a remarkable way with the teaching in Zen. When the body is at ease, only then can the mind truly be at ease. Sleeping is a simple act, but inside that simplicity is the wisdom of thousands of years of watching body and mind. From Kairu's experience, it becomes easy to see one thing. Insomnia is not a sign of strength or discipline. It only shows that your nervous system has been working beyond its limits, like a machine that never gets a moment's rest. And the paradox is, the more you try to sleep, the more awake you become. When you force the body to sleep right now, the mind flips into alert mode, making everything even tighter. only when you let go of the demand to sleep does the body begin to sink down, like water naturally finding the lowest place. That is why the Zen master said, "The right posture is the shortcut into the natural recovery state." Modern science confirms this as well. When the body lies on the right side, heart rate slows, blood pressure drops, breathing deepens, and the brain quickly moves into alpha waves and then theta waves, the brainwave patterns associated with relaxation before deep sleep. Sleeping posture, therefore, is not a ritual or a magic spell. It is simply basic understanding of how the body and nervous system work. When a practitioner understands their own body, breath, and biological signals, they no longer see sleep as an enemy to fight. Sleep becomes a companion, the one who opens the door for body and mind to recover in silence. But posture is only one part of the journey, because even when the body is in the right position, the bedroom can still be filled with energies that keep the mind on alert. Many people keep their laptop, files, paperwork, and schedules right on the desk in their bedroom. Some place their work desk right next to the bed. Some keep their phone, full of emails, messages, and pressure, right beside their pillow. And even though the body is laying down, the mind never believes this is a place where it is allowed to rest. That leads us into the next part of transforming sleep. When the bedroom is filled with work items, the mind will never truly believe it is a place that's allowed to rest. There is one thing that seems small but quietly wears down the sleep of many people. The bedroom is no longer a bedroom. A place that is supposed to let the body rest and the mind loosen has become a storage room for computers, files, documents, notebooks, work schedules, and even all the unfinished worries that haven't been written down yet. During the day, you work at the desk. At night, you still sit on that same bed, typing a few more emails, tweaking one more plan, replying to a few more messages. Then, when you're tired, you simply close the laptop, pull the blanket up, and hope. Now I'm going to sleep, but the body and mind do not operate on hope. They operate on signals. If all day long the bedroom is telling the brain, this is where we work, where we feel stressed, where we must stay sharp, then when you want to sleep, the brain will still stay on guard. It's like walking into a conference room and telling yourself, just relax. It's very hard. So there is a very simple but profound principle. When the bedroom is filled with work items, the mind will never truly believe it is a place that's allowed to rest. To understand this more clearly, listen to the story of a young meditation student in an ancient mountain monastery called Aranel on the slopes of Mount Silaru. Where the morning clouds wrap around the peaks like silver silk, there was an old monastery named Arunel. Every evening, the bell from the main hall echoed through the valley, blending with the whisper of pine needles. That atmosphere made anyone who arrived there feel as if the whole world were slowing down. In that monastery lived a young student named Sahan. He was intelligent, memorized quickly, and was always eager to learn. Everyone said he was highly motivated and would soon become a leader among his peers. But there was one thing no one saw. Every night, Sahan had trouble sleeping. During the day, he studied well, chanted well, and worked diligently. But at night, when the whole monastery sank into deep sleep, Sahan's eyes were still wide open. Every time he lay down, his thoughts rushed in like a crowd that never left the market square. What he had learned, what he had to remember, teachings he hadn't fully understood, plans for the next day. For Sahin, the bedroom was not a place of rest. It was a library that never closed. One night, the abbot, Master Raviden, happened to see light still spilling out from Sahin's room. He gently knocked on the door. "It's very late. Why are you still awake?" Sahin lowered his head, embarrassed. "Master, I'm trying to sleep, but my mind keeps running. I think maybe my practice isn't strong enough." The master stepped into the room. The pale yellow lamplight fell on the cramped space, and in an instant, with a single look, he understood what Sahin himself had never noticed. On the small bed, blankets and pillows were in disarray, crowded by piles of books right next to the pillow. At the head of the bed stood a wooden desk stacked with sutras, pens, and notebooks. Beside it, a tall shelf full of treatises, maps, and scrolls of study plans. On the wall, a wooden board was covered with reminders. What to do tomorrow. Don't waste time. You must try harder. The master looked around and then gently asked, "What do you think this room is being used for?" Sahin replied, For me to study, to read, and to sleep." The master shook his head. "No, this room is only being used for work. Even the bed has been turned into a big desk." Sahin stood still, as if seeing his room for the first time. The master walked over to the wooden board on the wall and read each crowded line. Then he turned back and looked straight at Sahin. "Tonight, you're not losing sleep because of deluded thoughts or a lack of diligence. You're losing sleep because your mind hasn't received a single signal that it's allowed to rest. The bedroom must tell the body and mind, rest time has begun." The next day, following his teacher's instructions, Sahin spent the afternoon cleaning his room. He gathered all the books, pens, and notebooks from the bed and desk, put them into a wooden chest, and carried it to the library. The board packed with reminders was taken down. All the pushing phrases, "You must try harder," "Don't be slow," were removed completely. In the end, the room had only a neatly made bed, a small table for the oil lamp, a water jug, and a small alarm bell. There was nothing left that spoke of work, the future, goals, or responsibilities. No trace at all of what must be done tomorrow. That evening, when he returned to his room, Sahin was surprised to realize the room felt wider, brighter, and more spacious, even though it was the same size. The air inside felt light, as if someone had opened the door and let a breeze carry all the old pressure out. Master Raviden stopped by and stood at the doorway. "Now when you walk in, what do you hear this room saying to you?" Sahin closed his eyes and listened to the feeling in his chest. After a moment, he quietly answered, "It says, it's over, it's enough. You're allowed to rest now." The master smiled. "That is exactly the language your nervous system needs to shift into recovery mode. Without that language, sleep will always be a battle." That night, Sahin lay down on the clean bed, no longer stacked with books. The familiar thoughts still appeared, but they were lighter. Without the board pushing him toward the future, his mind wasn't pulled so far ahead. Without books piled beside his pillow, the feeling of "I still owe something" disappeared. Sahan fell asleep without knowing when. Many nights passed. Each night, that simple, empty room seemed to teach Sahan's body and mind the same lesson. This is not a battlefield of ideas, but a place where peace is allowed to appear. One morning, on his way to the main hall, Sahan said to the master, "Before, I thought my mind was too weak, and that's why I couldn't sleep. Now I understand. The mind only responds to the environment I build around it." The master nodded and replied gently, "If you want the mind to rest, you must build a place that is truly restful for it. The bedroom is that place. And when this space can say, 'You are allowed to rest,' sleep will always find its way to you." In the teachings, there is a very important point. The mind arises depending on conditions. Conditions here are not only mountains, rivers, people, and outside circumstances, but also the living space a person has arranged for themselves. A bedroom full of work items is, psychologically, a field of energy that is always saying, "Keep going, push more, it's not done, it's not enough." The mind hears that every day. At night, when the body wants to rest, the mind is still receiving this message. It's not safe to let go. There's still work. There are still responsibilities. There is still reputation to protect. In contrast, a simple bedroom that doesn't contain objects reminding you of the daytime battles is saying something very different. Here, you don't have to brace yourself. Here, you only need to breathe. Modern psychology calls this the context-dependent state effect. If you always work in your bedroom, the brain will link the bedroom with a state of stress. If you argue, answer tense emails, or scroll through emotionally upsetting news in bed, the brain will treat the bed itself as a battlefield. In Zen, this is very close to the idea of peaceful place, peaceful mind, place, the environment, the space, the setting, mind, the inner state of rest. You can't demand a peaceful mind when the place around it constantly evokes what is not peaceful. That is why, in old monasteries, monks' bedrooms were usually very simple. One bed, one pillow, maybe a small picture, a tiny Buddha statue, or a little bell, all of which remind them of resting in awareness, not of achieving or accomplishing. It's not because they were afraid of objects, but because they understood very clearly. Every item in the room is an invisible sentence sent to the mind. The wise will choose the sentences that soften them, not tighten them. From Sahan's story and Master Ravadin's teaching, we can draw a few very practical points. The bedroom is a sacred space for sleep, not a branch office. If possible, avoid completely. Keeping your laptop, files, or work notebooks on the bed. Hanging a to-do board right in front of you when you lie down. Displaying objects that remind you of failure, pressure, or competition. The moment you step into your room, on an unconscious level, you will hear one sentence. "This is where you rest," or "This is where you continue." Sleep will follow whichever sentence the mind has heard. Fewer objects, fewer stressful messages. Every object is an invisible line of text. The computer. Just check a little more. The files. The work isn't done yet. The glowing phone. Someone might need you. Meanwhile, a tidy space with only bedding, soft light, and one or two simple items is saying, There's nothing more to do. It's enough. Be compassionate toward your mind by giving it a place where it is truly allowed to stop. The Buddha taught compassion not only toward others, but also toward ourselves. One part of compassion is not forcing the mind to be on duty 24 hours a day. There are already plenty of places to fight. The workplace, the dining table, the streets, difficult conversations. At the very least, let the bedroom be the one place where the mind doesn't have to be on guard. Modern psychology also shows that people who clearly separate their workspace from their rest space tend to have less anxiety, sleep with better quality, recover faster after a stressful day. When the bedroom is no longer turned into a storage space for tasks, the mind can finally trust that there is at least one place in the day devoted purely to rest, where nothing is demanded, nothing has to be proved, and there is no need to push. But beyond the space itself, there is something even more subtle that the ancient practitioners deeply respected. A small, simple object used as an anchor for letting go. There is a story passed down about an old nun named Avenra from the icy land of Nistral. She always kept a round stone by her bed as a symbol of simplicity. Every night she would touch it to remind herself, there is nothing left to push for. From here, the journey moves into the story of Avenra and how a small stone could help an entire life learn the art of letting go before sleep. There are nights when, even though the body is exhausted, the mind still refuses to sleep. The light is off. The room is quiet. Yet inside feels like a place where the wind never stops blowing. You lie down, but your inner state is still standing, running, thinking, bracing. Why is that? Because inside, there is still something you haven't let go of. A worry that hasn't been put down. A memory that hasn't been closed. An unconscious effort that is still gripping every breath. In the teachings, there is a simple truth that very few people are willing to face. Sleep is not the result of exhaustion. It is the result of letting go. And to let go, sometimes you need a signal, a symbol, a very small reminder, but strong enough to tell the mind, tonight, you don't have to try anymore. In the ancient land of Nistral, where winter lasted half a year and the sun only visited for a few hours each day, there was a small monastery perched on an old ice cliff. The cold there could make a person shiver down to their bones, yet in that harsh landscape lived someone famous for an unusual stillness. The nun Avenra. People in the region spoke of her like a living legend. Even when the wind and snow howled through the cracks in the rocks and the sound of ice splitting echoed through the long night, Avenra still slept deeply, calm, like the surface of a frozen lake. Whenever the younger nuns lay awake, they often saw a familiar scene. Avenra sitting by the window, her gaze quiet and steady, one hand resting on a small round object. One winter night, when the snowstorm pounded so hard that the entire monastery shook in waves, a young nun named Elira came to Avenra's room. Her eyes were red from many sleepless nights. "Mother Avenra," she whispered, "why do you touch that stone every night?" Avenra smiled softly. She placed the stone in her palm. It was small, round, smooth, silver gray. No carvings, no sign of value. "When I was young," she said, I was just like you. As soon as I lay down, my mind would race like a wagon with no brakes, thinking and thinking until I was completely drained and still not knowing how to stop. Elira looked more closely at the stone, curious. So, does the stone help you sleep? Avenra gently shook her head. No, the stone has no magic at all. It only reminds me of one thing. This is far enough. There is nothing more that needs to be forced. Then she began to tell her story slowly. Many years ago, Avenra got lost in a snowstorm while on pilgrimage across the mountains. The wind was so strong, she couldn't see anything except an endless white void. When her strength was almost gone, she found a small rock ledge to shelter under. In that heavy darkness, her hand touched a round stone, just like the one in her hand now. What was strange was that in that moment, she suddenly stopped resisting. She stopped trying to find her way. She stopped forcing herself to stay alert. She simply let her breath return to its natural rhythm and allowed her body to sink down. That act of letting go preserved the last bit of her strength, just enough for the rescue party to find her later. From then on, the stone became a symbol of the stopping point, a simple reminder. This is enough. Avenra set the stone down and looked at Elira with gentle eyes. People don't lose sleep because they lack warm blankets or soft beds. They lose sleep because they don't have any signal that tells them they're allowed to rest. That night, Elira lay down with a different kind of breath, lighter, slower. For the first time in many weeks, the darkness no longer felt like a threat. It was simply a place where the mind could be put down, and when she let go of the urge to keep trying, Elira sank into deep sleep, like a leaf falling exactly into the soil it belongs to. Avenra's story seems simple, but it holds a deep layer of meaning. People often pressure themselves to think, to worry, to work right up to the very last second. Because of that, the mind never receives a day's end signal, like a bell that is never struck. In meditation, there is a concept called a mind anchor, a small symbol that helps the mind stop, not to control it, but to gently remind it. Night is the time to put things down, not the time to continue the silent war with yourself. Avenra's stone is exactly such an anchor point. It has no magic, but it opens a doorway, the doorway of permission. Permission to stop, to rest, to let go. Modern psychology calls this cue-based relaxation. When the body receives a repeated signal, the mind is conditioned to understand. It's time to relax now. It's like hearing a familiar melody and naturally feeling at peace. Sleep only comes when the mind believes it is safe. And the mind only feels safe when there is a stopping point. That stopping point is not the moment you turn off the light, but the moment inside you knows there is nothing left that needs to be held up anymore. The meditation master often emphasized, when there is no clear endpoint, the mind will keep running like a stream with no banks. That is why each person should have a small bedtime ritual, a sentence, a breath, a symbolic object, a simple action. Science points to the same thing. When you repeat a small ritual for 2 to 3 minutes, the brain reduces beta waves, the waves of active thinking, and gradually shifts into alpha waves, the waves of relaxation. That is the foundation of deep sleep. Avenra's story is a reminder that sometimes all it takes is one small object to open a very large door. The door that leads you into the stillness of the night. But that is only the first step. In pre-sleep relaxation meditation, there is also an ancient method that helps the mind slow down more quickly. The 3 preparation steps of breath, light, and a kind, wholesome heart. There is a quiet paradox that silently torments many people. The more exhausted you are, the more you crave deep sleep, the more your mind stays awake, tense, and unwilling to rest at night. The body is lying on the bed, but the mind is still standing in the battlefield of thoughts. What do I have to do tomorrow? What if this thing goes wrong? What are they thinking about me? Many people believe that to sleep they just need to be completely worn out. But the teachings do not see it that way. Deep sleep is not only the result of exhaustion, but the result of a consciously relaxed state, where the breath, the heart, and a wholesome mind all move in the same direction. According to the traditional teachings, pre-sleep relaxation meditation can follow 3 very simple steps. 1. The breath. 2. The light in the heart. 3. The wholesome mind. It sounds simple, but if you understand it deeply and practice it consistently, these 3 steps can become a bridge that carries you from a noisy day into a peaceful night. To see this more clearly, let's step into the story of a man who lived in nightmares until he learned how to let go. Right before closing his eyes, long ago in the Elvar mountain range, where sheer rock peaks rose into the clouds and the fog was so thick it felt like you could touch it, there was an ancient monastery hidden against the cliff. Every evening, as the sunlight faded behind the mountains, a cold purple hue settled over the entire valley. People in the region spoke of this monastery with reverence because there lived a meditation master famous for healing restless sleep. Lisan. One day, a young man named Cadus came to the monastery. He had once been a warrior in borderland battles, and although the war had ended in the outer world, it continued to explode in his mind every night. By day, Cadus looked like an ordinary man. He spoke calmly, worked hard, behaved politely. But when night fell, when the last sounds in the valley dissolved into silence, the moment he closed his eyes, the past came to life. The shriek of clashing swords, screams of pain, flames rising from burning villages, and the faces of people he would never forget. For many years, Cadus woke in the middle of the night drenched in cold sweat, breathing in broken gasps, his heart pounding as if it would tear through his chest. Every night was another battle, a battle he could not win. Exhausted but unable to sleep deeply, Cadus finally heard of Master Lyson and decided to climb the mountain to seek him. When he met the master, Cadus knelt down, his voice choked. "Please, master, give me a mantra, a ritual, or anything that can cut off these nightmares. I am willing to do anything." Master Lyson looked at him for a long time. That gaze did not judge or probe. It seemed to see straight through the invisible armor Cadus still wore. "You have fought enough," the master said gently, like a breeze. "You don't need another battle with your own sleep. Kaidas fell silent. Those words pierced the deepest layer of his heart. Instead of trying to chase away the nightmares, the master continued. Learn how to relax before you sleep. Relax how, master? Kaidas asked, his face full of doubt. Before you sleep, you are bringing the entire day, even an entire lifetime, into your bed. How can the mind be at peace? The master led Kaidas out to the stone veranda overlooking the valley covered in clouds. Cool air moved through the pine trees, carrying the smell of damp earth. Listen to these 3 steps, he said. Stay with them for 40 nights. The breath, the light in the heart, the wholesome mind. Kaidas exhaled, half believing, half skeptical. The master looked at him and said gently, Many things that hurt you don't do so because they are too strong, but because you have resisted them for too long. Night 1. The breath. That night, Kaidas lay in a small room in the monastery, the window slightly open so the night air could flow in. He remembered the master's words. You don't need to force yourself to sleep. Just place your hand on your belly and feel the breath coming in and going out. Count from 1 to 10, then return to 1. If the mind wanders, just come back to the rising and falling of the belly. Kaidas did as instructed. At first, his memory was still flooded with the sound of swords and screams, but when he placed his hand on his belly and felt each clear rise and fall, something strange happened. His mind had a place to rest, not on the old battlefield, but on the breath in this very moment. He did not fall asleep right away, but the fear softened. The nightmares did not disappear. They just felt farther away. The next morning, Kaidas said to the master, I still dreamed, but it felt lighter. That is the anchor, the master replied. It hasn't pulled you to shore yet, but it has kept you from being swept away. Night 7. The light in the heart. A week passed, the master said. Now, add the light in the heart. When you breathe in, imagine a small, soft, warm point of light in the center of your chest. When you breathe out, let that light spread out like a gentle circle. Kaidas asked, What kind of light is that? It has no name, the master said, but it is the cleanest, kindest part of you, the place untouched by war. That night, Kaidas followed the instructions. He imagined a pale, golden light in his chest. Each time he exhaled, the light spread gently. In that moment, the battlefield memories moved back. They did not vanish, but it was as if they were now behind a thin curtain, and for the first time, Kaidas did not see himself as someone being attacked by nightmares, but as someone sitting in a bright room, looking out. Night 21. The wholesome mind. 3 weeks later, Kaidas's eyes were less bloodshot and his fatigue had eased. The master said, When the breath is steady and the light is stable, add the wholesome mind. Silently say in your heart, May I be at peace. May I let go of what is old. May I sleep in ease tonight. Kaidas went quiet. When the master mentioned those he had harmed and those who had harmed him, his heart tightened. It's not about whether they deserve it or not, the master said softly. If you continue to hold them as enemies in your heart, you will never be able to sleep. That night, Kaidas practiced the 3 steps: breath, light, wholesome mind, when he silently whispered, May I be at peace. Something inside his chest trembled. as if he had just received a kindness he had been waiting for a very long time. When he widened his heart, letting the light embrace those old faces, he no longer shook from fear, but from release. That night, Cadus slept. Not perfectly, but it was the first sleep in many years in which he did not wake up in terror. In the nights that followed, he continued to practice. The nightmares became less frequent. Then they broke into fragments, drifting by and dissolving like sea foam. Eventually, Cadus came to the master and bowed. Because of those 3 steps, the night is no longer my enemy. The master simply smiled. The night was never the enemy. Only the mind did not yet know the way back to the breath, to the light in the heart, and to the deepest goodness within itself. The 3 steps of pre-sleep relaxation meditation: the breath, the light in the heart, and the wholesome mind, are not a mystical ritual, but 3 levels of caring for body, mind, and karma. 1. The breath, directly related to the body. When the breath is slow, deep, and even, the parasympathetic nervous system is activated, the heart calms, and the muscles soften. From a meditation perspective, the breath is the anchor of mindfulness, pulling the mind back to the present instead of letting it drift into the past or future. 2. The light in the heart, related to emotions and self-awareness. The image of light gives the mind a positive anchor instead of letting the brain automatically return to dark, heavy memory zones. In Buddhist teachings, this is close to contemplating Buddha nature, the clear, pure part within each person that has never been truly stained by the mud of life. 3. The wholesome mind, related to mental formations, karma, and direction. Before sleep, if the mind is full of hatred, jealousy, and self-torment, that energy will continue to operate in dreams. On the other hand, if the mind can arouse even a little kindness, a bit of forgiveness, a wish for well-being for oneself and others, sleep becomes an opportunity for wholesome energy to be nourished. Modern psychology says something very similar. Slow breathing activates the vagus nerve and lowers cortisol, the stress hormone. Positive imagery before sleep helps reduce activation in the amygdala, the brain's fear and threat center. Cultivating feelings of gratitude and loving kindness right before sleep can improve sleep quality, reduce nightmares, and increase overall life satisfaction. In this way, the 3 steps of relaxation meditation are consistent with both the teachings and scientific findings. From Cadus's story, we can draw some practical points. You don't have to be a monastic to practice these 3 steps. You don't need a lot of time, just a few minutes before sleep, done consistently. What matters is not perfect technique, but a gentle attitude toward yourself. Not forcing yourself to sleep, but preparing a soft path for the mind to walk into the night. One simple piece of evidence. Many studies show that those who spend a few minutes practicing slow breathing combined with positive contemplation before sleep tend to fall asleep faster, wake up less during the night, experience a significant reduction in daytime anxiety. The teachings express this in another way. Where the mind goes, karma follows. Before sleep, if the mind turns toward the wholesome, then sleep itself becomes part of the path of practice. Pre-sleep relaxation meditation. With the breath, the light in the heart, and the wholesome mind is a gentle path that carries people from the noise of the day into the stillness of the night. But in today's world, even with meditation, many people still feel that sleeping deeply is a kind of battle. Because alongside these calming practices, there is a powerful current pulling the mind back toward unrest. Bright electronic screens right before the eyes, blue light streaming in, endless comparison on social media, and chronic, unbroken tension. Next, we will look directly at this reality. Why modern people are living in a war with sleep, and how gentle practices can avoid being drowned in an ocean of information, light, and constant comparison. There is a sad paradox of the modern age. The more people long for deep sleep, the harder it is for them to actually sleep, not because the body is sick, not because the mind is weak, but because everyday life itself has become a silent battlefield. Electronic devices occupy every last minute of the day. Blue light pierces through the eyes into the nervous system. Constant comparison on social media makes the heart uneasy. Chronic stress flows like an underground current that never stops. The meditation master often told those who came to him, "You are not insomniac. You're just bringing a day that is too noisy to bed with you." It's like carrying the noise of a crowded marketplace into a tiny room and expecting silence. That's impossible. So how can modern people, living in this whirlwind of noise, still return to deep, natural, wholesome sleep like in childhood? The answer is not in pills or complicated techniques. It lies in how we step into the night, in how we prepare the mind before closing our eyes. To understand this clearly, let's look at the story of a young woman who held a phone in her hand but carried a war in her heart. In the area around Lake Miraval, where the still green water reflected the sky like a mirror, there was a young woman named Arinya. By day, she was the image of success, quick, efficient, always finishing everything ahead of schedule. Everyone who looked at her thought she was living a neat, stable, admirable life. But when night came, everything changed completely. Even when her body was utterly exhausted, Arinya still couldn't fall into sleep. The reason wasn't her beautiful bedroom, her soft mattress, or the light scent of essential oils. It was the small object in her hand every night, a phone that was never dark. Every evening, she told herself she would go to bed early, but just one notification, one message from someone, or one random image on social media, and she would extend her day by another 30 minutes. Then 30 minutes became an hour became 2. And when she finally put the phone down, her mind was still running non-stop. Still comparing, still mentally scrolling through hundreds of things she had seen. One night, in the quiet darkness, Arinya turned over and sighed softly. "Why can't I sleep?" She didn't realize that sleep had already left her the moment she turned on the blue light of her screen, that light piercing her eyes and awakening her entire alert nervous system. Right when she was trying to convince her body to rest, one afternoon, Arinya went to see Master Elwin, a teacher renowned throughout the Miraval region for healing damaged sleep. His room was so simple, it was almost bare. Just a wooden board, a water jug, and a small oil lamp burning. Hesitantly, Arinya asked, "Master, why am I always exhausted, but as soon as I get into bed, I still can't sleep?" The master didn't answer right away. He bent down and gently blew on the flame of the oil lamp so the light flickered softly like a breath. Then he asked, "What do you see when you look at this flame?" "Light, small and warm, master," Arinya replied. The master nodded slightly. He opened a small box. Inside was a glowing stone, shining with a cold blue light so strong that Arinya had to squint. "It's so bright. It hurts my eyes," she said. The master smiled. "This light is like the device you look at every night. And this small light from the oil lamp is like the light of your mind when it wants to rest. If you put these two sources of light in front of you at the same time, the stronger one will always win." He asked, "Which one do you think your mind will be pulled toward?" Arinya whispered, "Of course it will follow the stronger light." The master set the box down, his voice as gentle as the night breeze. "That is why you cannot sleep, not because you are weak, but because your mind is being pulled by something too strong right before rest. The mind is not at fault. It just runs toward whatever attracts it the most." For the first time, Arinya understood why 5 minutes of scrolling always turned into 2 hours. The master continued, "Tonight, try this. When the sun sets, leave your phone in another room. The bedroom is only for 3 things: rest, breathing, and quiet." Arinya grew anxious. "I'm afraid of the emptiness, afraid of feeling cut off from the world." The master looked at her with kind, deeply understanding eyes. "It's not emptiness you fear. You fear facing yourself." Then he told her a short teaching story. The candle that lost its light. On an altar in a small room, there was a candle. Every night, people lit it. But one day, they added a very bright electric lamp. The candle immediately felt weak, meaningless, unnoticed. It sadly thought, "What is the point of my light now?" An old monk passed by and said softly, "You've forgotten. Your light is not there to be admired, but to illuminate a small space for someone who needs it. That stronger light is not better or worse. It just overshadows you. When that strong light is turned off, people will realize the candle was always there. Still warm enough, beautiful enough, gentle enough to soften the whole room." The master looked deeply into Arinya's eyes. "You are like that too. When you turn off the blue light, you will see the candle inside you again. Your stillness, your breath, and the strength of mindfulness. All this time, you haven't truly lost sleep. It's just that the stronger light has covered up your own light." Arinya's story reveals a larger truth. Modern people are living in a war with sleep. Not an outer war, but a war between light and darkness inside. In the teachings, sleep is seen as part of the healing path. During sleep, the breath regulates itself. Cells repair themselves. The energy of the mind reorganizes itself, but blue light and social media activate the alert nervous system, making the brain feel like it is still in the middle of the day, in the middle of constant comparison, competition, and evaluation. In psychology, blue light suppresses melatonin, the hormone that leads the body into deep sleep. Social comparison online activates the amygdala, the brain's threat and fear center, Phone notifications keep the brain in a constant state of something is about to happen, unable to relax. In meditation teachings, this is the restless mind, pulled by stimulation. It is the mind of craving, wanting to know more, see more, update more. It is the anxious mind, afraid of being left behind. If these activities take place right before bedtime, we cannot blame sleep for leaving us, because where there is no peaceful ground, the seed of sleep cannot sprout. From Arinya's story, the master concluded, devices are not evil. They are simply too strong for a mind that is trying to rest. They are like a big drum right next to your ear. Even if you want to stop hearing it, the drum still drowns everything out. Blue light is not just light. It is a signal saying, don't sleep. When the eyes receive it, the brain immediately switches to daytime mode and stops producing melatonin. Online comparison is not harmless. It tightens the mind like an overstretched string, and a string pulled too tight cannot produce the gentle sound of sleep. Science also confirms just stopping device use 1 hour before bedtime can increase sleep quality by up to 40%. People who reduce social media use in the evening have more stable heart rates and less tossing and turning. People who sleep in total darkness have up to 60% deeper sleep than those who sleep in rooms with even a little light. The teachings call this returning darkness to the night. Not because darkness is frightening. Darkness is the natural environment of rest and renewal. When you understand how blue light, devices, and stress steal your sleep, you will see clearly one thing. The body already knows how to heal itself, but that can only happen when we stop interfering. There is something very strange. The human body is born with a natural, incredibly subtle wisdom. It knows to ask for food when hungry, to rest when tired, to cry out when in pain, to mend its own wounds, to adjust its own heartbeat, temperature, and breathing. And yet the older we get, the more we know, the less we trust our own body. A little pain and we panic, a small twinge and we rush to label it a serious illness, a bit of fatigue, and we immediately force the body to keep running. Then, when it comes to sleep, the golden time for the body to heal itself, people interfere the most. They take stimulants, hold the phone until the last minute, drag worries, old arguments, guilt, and self-blame, all the way into bed. The teachings remind us very clearly, this body has its own natural wisdom. Healing happens when the conditions are right, and when we stop stirring things up. In other words, the body knows how to heal itself, but that only happens when we stop interfering. To understand this more deeply, let's step into an old story about a man who wanted to control everything and almost lost his own breath because of it. Long ago, in the old port city of Tavarin, where merchant ships docked each day and deals were sealed amid the sound of metal bells, there was a wealthy trader named Raven. He was famous throughout the region for his sharp intelligence, his flawless calculations, and his habit of controlling everything, from the smallest coin to every action and word of his workers. One seemingly ordinary day, Ravan began to lose sleep. At first, it was just a few restless nights, but soon he was only sleeping 1 or 2 hours each night. On top of insomnia, he had headaches, tightness in his chest, a heartbeat that sometimes raced and sometimes slowed, and digestive upset. The feeling of not being able to control his own body threw Ravon into panic. He ran everywhere looking for doctors, took every new medicine he heard of, tried all sorts of unfamiliar rituals. But each time he took something, he would sit and wait, hoping for immediate results. If he didn't feel a change within a few minutes, he switched to something else. His body never had time to understand what was happening before being yanked in another direction. The more he tried to fix himself, the more exhausted he became. The more he forced his body to sleep, the further sleep slipped away. In his desperation, Ravon heard about Master Anviro, who lived on a hill outside the city, a meditation teacher known not for miracles, but for simple, clear teachings that worked in a strange, effective way. Ravon climbed the hill to the monastery, his eyes dark with fatigue, his face worn out. As soon as he saw the master, he blurted out, "Please heal me. This body is betraying me. I've tried everything and it won't obey." Master Anviro looked at him for a long moment, not in a hurry. Then he led Ravon to the pond in front of the courtyard. The surface of the water was flat and still like a mirror. The master took a stick and stirred it hard. The water immediately turned cloudy. Waves rippled out, and bits of debris floated up. He asked, "What do you see?" Ravon answered, "Master, the water is murky. It can't reflect anything anymore." The master set the stick down. After a short while, he asked again, "If you want the water to become clear again, what would you do?" True to his habit of always wanting to act, Ravon replied, "I'd stir it in the opposite direction." The master smiled. "No matter which way you stir it, the water will stay cloudy. The only way is to stop moving your hand." Ravon watched the pond. Just as the master said, with no one touching it, the debris slowly drifted aside. The mud sank to the bottom, and the water cleared on its own. The master said, "Your body is the same. It is trying to reset its rhythm, to heal the damage. But your mind keeps stirring, worrying, fearing, switching medicines constantly, monitoring every sensation, judging every heartbeat, every breath." He looked straight into Ravon's eyes. "Your body has not betrayed you. It is just being interfered with too much. You haven't given it the time and space to do its own work." Those words choked Ravon up. All his life he believed tight control was the key to success. Now he had to accept a hard truth. Some things get worse the more you interfere. The master invited him to stay at the monastery for 7 days under very simple conditions. No business talk, no ledgers, no trying new medicines, just moderate meals, gentle walking, sitting quietly with the breath, and at night, simply lying down and observing his body. Ravon was confused. "So, you're not going to treat me? No medicine, no rituals?" The master replied, "Most of the time, the body doesn't need more things. It just needs you to stop doing too much. Let the body have the right to heal itself. Your job is not to get in the way." That first night, Ravon lay on a simple mat. No market noise, no strong liquor to knock him out, no work. He could hear every heartbeat, every breath, every uncomfortable spasm. His instinct to do something flared up, but he remembered the master's words. "Stop stirring, So he just lay there, letting things unfold on their own. He didn't sleep well that night, but for the first time, he wasn't fighting himself. On the third day, his body felt lighter. On the fifth day, his mind was clearer. By the seventh day, he slept straight through from evening until morning, without waking in the middle of the night like before. When he left the hill, Raven thanked the master. "I don't understand. You hardly did anything, yet my body improved." The master pointed to the pond, still flat and crystal clear. "You see? Stopping is the strongest medicine. When you stop interfering, the body finally has the space to do what it has always known how to do: heal itself." From Ravan's story, the master often reminded his disciples and those who came to seek help, the body is the result of countless conditions: food, air, sleep, environment, mood, past karma. It carries a natural intelligence. It knows how to clot blood, regenerate skin, regulate the heart, balance hormones. The mind is the manager, but often overmanages. Instead of listening to the body's signals, the mind constantly judges. "This is dangerous. I'm about to die. If I don't sleep, everything will fall apart. A heartbeat like this means a serious illness." Those labels make the nervous system tense, the breath shallow, the muscles tight, and sleep even more distant, intervening at the wrong time, in the wrong way. Taking medications non-stop without following a doctor's guidance. Using many supplements without understanding their effects. Self-diagnosing based on the internet. Jumping from one method to another out of impatience. All of that is the stick stirring the water the master showed Raven. From the Buddhist perspective, this body operates according to cause and effect. When we create enough good conditions, balanced eating, deep breathing, gentle movement, resting at the right time, a less chaotic mind, the body will naturally restore balance. When we force, fear, and constantly doubt, the body has to heal while also carrying a fresh layer of stress. From the perspective of modern science, the body has an immune system, an endocrine system, and an autonomic nervous system working 24/7. When we deeply relax and sleep enough, cortisol, the stress hormone, drops. The immune system functions better, and damaged cells are repaired. In contrast, chronic stress and reckless interference disrupt the body's self-healing mechanisms. Simply put, the body knows how to do the body's work. The real question is whether the mind will let it. The master often taught, if you want the body to heal itself, the first step is not doing something more, but doing fewer things that block it. In daily life, this can start very concretely. When the body is tired, instead of drinking more coffee to push a little more, give yourself 10-15 minutes to lie still. No devices, no talking, just breathing. When your heart is racing from anxiety, instead of immediately concluding, "I have a serious illness," sit down and take 20 deep breaths, feeling your heartbeat gradually calm. When you've had a few sleepless nights, instead of instantly imagining the worst-case scenarios, look back and ask, have I been using my phone too late? Did I eat too much before bed? Did I bring work all the way into the bed? A simple study shows people who practice muscle relaxation, deep breathing, and letting go of judgmental thoughts for 10-15 minutes before bed after a few weeks have significantly better sleep, reduced anxiety, and more stable heart rates. This is very close to the teaching. When good causes are enough, good results arise on their own. When you stop planting more unwholesome seeds, unwholesome results gradually fade. Understanding that the body has the ability to heal itself is a very important step. When we stop over-interfering, stop doubting and scaring ourselves, the body will slowly recover and sleep will slowly return. But there is still a deeper layer. Even when the environment is quiet, devices are off, and the body has lain down, the mind can still create waves of restlessness if it carries too much anger, blame, and worry. Because when we lie down with a mind full of anger, blame, and anxiety, those energies flow into our sleep, creating a long-lasting sense of unease. Next, we will step into that very subtle territory. How, before sleep, we can not only release control over the body, but also untie the knots in the mind so that sleep truly becomes a doorway into peace, not just a brief escape. There is a quiet paradox that happens in many lives. When people are most exhausted and most in need of sleep, that is exactly when the mind fills up with the whispers of anger, resentment, and anxiety. Every time the head touches the pillow, unresolved emotions quietly open the door and step into the inner darkness, then stay there all night long. Why can a feeling that lasted only a few minutes in the daytime turn into a long, dragging uneasiness in sleep? According to the teachings, the mind carries the energy of seeds. Whatever seed is planted right before sleep will blossom into the realm the mind experiences after it drifts off, like a glass of clear water that is sitting still. Just one drop of ink falls in, and all the clarity changes color. The mind is the same. Just one thought that hasn't been purified is enough to redirect the whole night. People often think sleep is the business of the body, but in truth, sleep is the most honest mirror of the mind's real state. A person who lies down with peace will sleep like a gentle flowing stream. A person who lies down with anger is like carrying stones into their dreams. So the question is, what actually goes into sleep with each person? And what truly decides whether that sleep is peaceful or restless? In the icy highlands of Asaron, where winter winds cut through even the thickest layers of clothing and the ground is covered in white frost, there was an old meditation monastery called Hikaruin. In that deep stillness lived an elderly master named Zahe, whom the local people regarded as a teacher who could perceive even the smallest movements in another person's mind. One stormy night, while the wind howled past the old wooden roofs of the monastery, a young student named Raimu quietly knelt before the door of the master's meditation room. His face was gaunt, his eyes darkened by many nights without sleep. Raimu spoke softly, his voice blending into the cold wind. "Master, during the day I seem normal, but when night falls and I lie in bed, all the things that bother me come rushing back. Old insults, mistakes I haven't dared to face, worries with no answer. I want to sleep, but my mind feels like a flame that never goes out." Zahe did not answer right away. He placed a small oil lamp in front of Raimu and asked, What do you see in this lamp?" "Master, I see a flame burning," Raimu replied. Zahe nodded slightly. "If you wanted it to go out immediately, what would you do?" Without thinking much, Raimu blew hard. The flame did not go out. It flared up even brighter. He flushed with embarrassment. The master spoke slowly. "That is exactly how you are treating your mind before sleep. The more you try to drive away anger, worry, and resentment, the more fiercely they burn." Then Zahe picked up the lamp's lid and gently placed it on top. The flame drew in, grew weaker, and then disappeared in a completely natural way. "Emotions are the same," he said. "When they appear, you don't need to fight them. You just need to see them, breathe with them, and let them settle by themselves. You don't extinguish them by force. You simply stop, observe, and let the breath do the rest." Raimu looked at his teacher, still troubled. "But master, why do these emotions only come to me at night?" Zahe placed his warm hand on Raimu's chest, right where the breath could be felt most clearly. "Because in the daytime, you are too busy. The emotions that haven't been healed have nowhere to step out. Only at night, when nothing else is distracting the mind, do they come to you asking to be heard. Anger, resentment, worry, they are just the last guests of the day. But if you carry them into sleep, they become the owners of the long night." Raimu lowered his head and looked at the extinguished lamp. Suddenly he understood. There are things that cannot be forced to disappear, cannot be conquered by effort. They can only settle when we stop blowing on our own flame. The answer his teacher gave him that night was very simple, but it was what his mind had been waiting a long time to understand. To sleep peacefully, you must first allow the mind the right to settle. Raimu's story is the image of many people, chasing pressure all day, so tired at night they just want to close their eyes, and yet the mind refuses to sleep. Anger, resentment, and worry are the three strongest flames. Once they enter sleep, they will create suffocating, oppressive dreams, make the brain work overtime, cause sleep to be shallow and easily disturbed, leave the body feeling drained in the morning as if it never truly rested. According to the teaching of impermanence, emotions come and go. But according to habit, people want to hold them, think about them, turn them over and over to explain and control them. That very effort to interfere is what activates the mind. Like a flame being blown on, meditation teaches, do not put out fire with the wind. Let it extinguish itself by non-interference. In the same way, you cannot extinguish anxiety by worrying about your anxiety. You cannot extinguish anger by forcing yourself to stop being angry. In the language of modern psychology, this is called emotional overactivation. The more you try to avoid an emotion, the more the brain registers it as a threat, and in response activates the sympathetic nervous system, making the heart race, the breath quicken, and insomnia drag on. Awakening does not begin from perfection. Awakening begins from awareness. Awareness of anger, awareness of resentment, awareness of worry, and then letting them fade like mist when they are no longer being fed. The teaching in this story shows Emotions are not inherently bad. What turns them into a burden is the way we carry them into our sleep. The Buddha taught that the mind before sleep needs to be cleansed by the breath and mindfulness. When an emotion arises, you only need to 1. Recognize. This is anger. This is worry. This is a thought that hasn't settled. 2. Not judge. Do not label it as bad. Do not push it away. 3. Breathe through it. Let the breath move through the emotion like water flowing past stone. 4. Put it down. Do not carry it into the night. Scientific studies show that just 3 minutes of slow, steady breathing can reduce sympathetic nervous system activity and help the brain generate alpha waves, the kind of waves that calm the mind and prepare it for sleep. Just as Zahe gently covered the lamp, the mind also needs a gentle action like that to stop. Not a hard attempt to stamp things out, but a simple choice to stop feeding them. Emotions do not only live in the mind while we are awake, they also walk into our sleep if we fail to recognize them in time. And that is exactly what turns a long night into something heavy. From here, the next part opens into an even deeper truth. Sleep is the meeting point of body, mind, and breath. Insomnia means that at least one of these three is out of balance. There's a profound truth that not everyone realizes. Sleep does not come from the body's exhaustion, but from the harmony of 3 elements: body, mind, and breath. When they can't sleep, many people think the body is too tense or the mind is too anxious. But in reality, as soon as even one of these 3 falls out of balance, deep sleep immediately moves away. A question arises: why are there nights when the body is completely exhausted, the head feels so heavy, and yet you still cannot sleep? And why are there other nights when just one deep breath, one brief moment of peace, is enough for sleep to arrive as lightly as a leaf falling onto a still lake? Sleep reflects exactly how these 3 elements are functioning. The body is the ground. The mind is the sky. The breath is the bridge connecting the two. If the body is too tense, the mind too active, or the breath too shallow, sleep will be broken, shallow, or will not come at all. Like a 3-sided instrument, if even one corner is off, the sound will be harsh and jarring. Sleep is the same. Harmony is the condition for rest, not effort. On the ancient peak of Mount Kazuka, where snow covers the ground all year and fog wraps around the roof tiles like the breath of heaven and earth, there was a small monastery tended by an old meditation master named Ashen. People in the region often said that Ashen did not use complicated teachings. He only spoke very simple words, yet anyone who listened walked away with a quiet light inside, especially those who were struggling with sleep. One late winter night, as strong winds blew snow sideways like silver threads, a young student named Matora came to find Ashen. His face was gaunt, his eyes red from many sleepless nights. "Master, I've tried everything," he said. "Herbal teas, counting my breath, changing positions. But my mind is still as awake as if it were noon. I'm exhausted, and yet sleep is still standing outside the door." Ashen looked at him with eyes that were gentle yet deep. "What do you think is keeping you awake?" he asked. Matora shook his head. Sometimes my body feels completely worn out, but my mind runs like a wild horse. Other times my mind settles down, but my breath becomes short and tight. Everything is tangled. Ashen nodded softly, then handed Matora a small bell. Sleep is like a three-sided bell, he said. If the three sides don't resonate together, the bell will never ring clearly. Try striking it. Matora took the bell and tapped it lightly. The sound that came out was sharp, distorted, and broken. He was surprised. "Why does it sound like that?" Ashen replied. "Because your hand is tense, your mind is strained, and your breath is held in. The bell is only reflecting your current state." Then the teacher placed a hand on Matora's shoulder. "Here on Kazuka," he said, "before going to sleep, everyone must do 3 bell rhythms. If the bell does not ring round and clear, no one is allowed to go to bed." Matora tilted his head. "What are those 3 rhythms, master?" Ashen pointed out to the meditation yard where snow was falling softly. The first rhythm: let the body soften like snow touching the ground. The second rhythm: let the breath become round like the winter moon. The third rhythm: let the mind open as wide as the night sky, not clinging, not resisting anything that appears. He continued, his voice slow and penetrating. "Sleep has not abandoned you. It's just that the 3 parts within you, body, breath, and mind, are not yet looking in the same direction." When he finished speaking, Ashen led Matora to stand under the eaves, letting the cold wind touch his face and chest. Then he handed him the bell again. "Now try ringing it again," he said, "after you've relaxed." Matora closed his eyes, let his shoulders drop, allowed his breath to soften in his chest, and let his mind become as light as a melting snowflake. He lifted the bell and struck it once. The sound that rang out was clear, full, and round, spreading far like the breath of the wind passing through the mountains. Ashen smiled. "That is the sound of sleep," he said. "And when the 3 sides within you come into harmony, sleep will find its way back on its own. You don't have to chase it." The story of Kazuka shows that the 3 elements of sleep, body, mind, and breath, do not operate separately. They are connected like 3 ropes holding the same door. If one rope breaks, the door jams. A tense body, shallow breath, restless mind. An anxious mind, rapid breath. A rigid body, a broken, uneven breath. An unstable mind, a body that loses its ground. The Buddha once compared the breath to a bridge between the 2 shores of body and mind. When the breath becomes round and steady, the body naturally softens. When the body softens, the mind naturally settles. Meditation calls this the reconnection of 3 energy chambers. Modern psychology also shows that deep breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's natural recovery mechanism. The body can only enter sleep when the parasympathetic system takes the lead. The more you try to force yourself to sleep while the mind is still tense, the more the brain releases cortisol, making insomnia worse. So you cannot force the body to sleep. You cannot force the mind to be still. But you can soften the breath, and the breath will lead the body and mind back to the same path. The lesson from Kazuka is this: Insomnia is not a disease of the night. Insomnia is a sign that the day has not been released. Many people carry their daytime state straight into bed, a body exhausted after a long, tense day, a mind full of unresolved thoughts and unfinished judgments, a breath disrupted by unprocessed emotions. Sleep then becomes a battlefield instead of a place of rest. Meditation reminds us, if you want to sleep deeply, let the body return to its natural state. Not pushing, not forcing, not controlling. One study explains that just 4 minutes of continuous 4-6 breathing, inhale for 4 seconds, exhale for 6 seconds, can calm the heart, activate the part of the brain that creates a sense of safety, and gently move the body into recovery mode. This echoes an ancient teaching. The breath is the gateway to peace. When the breath is in harmony, body, mind, and breath meet at a single still point. And that is where sleep is born. Before you step into the night, you only need to do the 3 things Ashen once taught. 3 small things that are enough to transform an entire night's sleep. Let the body soften. Let the shoulders drop as if putting down a heavy load. Relax the jaw so the words you never had the chance to say can quietly drift away. Relax the hands so the body knows that the day's battles have ended. Then let the whole body sink gently into the bed, soft like snow settling into the earth. When the body softens, the tensions that clung to you all day begin to dissolve on their own, and the breath starts to change its rhythm. Let the breath become round. You don't need to count or use complex techniques. Just let the breath go in a little deeper and out a little longer. No rush, no force. Each breath is like a full moon slowly gliding across the night sky. Complete, steady, and gentle. Let the mind open. Do not hold on to anything from the day. Do not cling to unfinished conversations. Do not keep arguing with the past or debating with memory. Let the mind open like the sky. Every cloud of emotion is allowed to pass by. None of them needs to be pushed away. When softened body, round breath, and open mind meet, sleep is no longer something you strive for or chase after. It comes on its own, quietly and deeply. Like water finding its way back to the ocean, the story of Kazuka reminds us, sleep is not stolen by the dark. Sleep only leaves when body, mind, and breath stop looking in the same direction. To many people, sleep seems like nothing more than just closing your eyes. But in the eyes of a wise person, deep sleep is the art of bringing body and mind into harmony. A way of placing the body gently into the arms of nature so it can be repaired and renewed. A gift that wisdom gives to itself so that tomorrow can be lived with clarity, kindness, and insight. Tonight, as you lie down, if that familiar inner voice suddenly whispers, just push a little more, stay up a little longer, you might gently smile and ask in return, am I truly living more wisely right now, or just draining myself further? And if something inside quietly understands, You can softly pull the blanket up. Place a hand over your chest. Breathe slowly and let the body rest, the way a wise person cares for a precious treasure, because deep sleep is a gift the wise give to themselves, because they understand the body must rest before the mind can shine. When you begin to respect that gift, each night stops being a battle with sleep and becomes a quiet ritual of wisdom and compassion offered to your own being. As our journey comes to a close, I hope you felt something simple, yet deeply important. Deep sleep is not a reward for the lucky. It is the result of a mind that knows how to stop, a body that knows how to let go, and a way of living that knows how to return to simplicity. The Zen stories you've listened to, from Kairu, Sahan, Avenra, to the practitioners in frozen lands and those who carried the unease of the past inside them, all point to one truth the Buddha once taught. When the mind is at peace, the whole world becomes light. Deep sleep does not come from forcing, from worrying, or from inner conflict. It comes from understanding how the body works, understanding where the mind has been hurt, understanding what needs to be released and what truly needs to be kept, and most of all, understanding that the night is not an enemy, but an old friend patiently waiting for us to come home. If you have carried restlessness for many years, please remember, sleep has not abandoned you. It is simply waiting for you to open a door, the door of the breath, of acceptance, of kindness, of a simple, uncluttered room, and a mind that knows when to stop. Tonight, before you close your eyes, take a small moment to say to yourself, I am safe. I am allowed to rest. I am allowed to sleep deeply. Thank you for walking with me on this healing journey. If what we shared today has brought you some ease, please subscribe to the Buddhism Seeds channel so we can continue traveling together on the path of awakening. Please like, share, and leave a small comment below so I know you are here, and so our community can grow through warmth, kindness, and understanding. I wish you a truly quiet night, a truly deep sleep, and a dawn that feels light in your heart. Good night.